Hello and welcome to this very quick, I don't know, I haven't filmed it yet, video which is giving you feedback from your settlement assessment 1. Okay, apologies for the shaky hands, I'm filming it quickly on an iPhone. You should have been given a sheet of paper during lesson which has got 2 boxes in it. First box is for your target grade. The second is for the grade that you achieved on this assessment. I want you to leave that blank for the time being, and then you should have a what went well and an even better if. Now it's your job whilst watching this video to listen, read through your test paper at the same time. You can pause it, rewind it as many times as you like, but it's up to you to come up with, based on what you've written and my feedback, what your what went well and your even better if is. Now this is the first assessment that you've done, so I don't expect everyone's assessment to be perfect, but it's through feedback that we can start to improve. Okay, first things first, I should explain the colours that I've put onto your test papers. Red's not red, red's not even on there. Pink is when there is a misunderstanding. So if you've got something highlighted in pink, it's probably not quite right. Green is for where you're picking up marks, and yellow is where you give me some good pieces of geography, but it doesn't actually answer the question. And that's where boxing those command words and taking your time to read the questions properly really comes into place. Now the first question I'm going to look at was a simple one marker that said define the CBD. Pretty much everyone I think got this correct, and the CBD is of course the Central Business District. Just watch your spelling of central. Okay, right. Now we start to get a bit more complicated, so this is where you're going to need to listen very carefully. There was one question which was based around the hierarchy of settlements. Now that particular question simply said, use the information in figure 4 to explain what is meant by the hierarchy of settlements and services. Now, lots of you didn't actually use the figure in order to be able to give you your answers, which left you at a big disadvantage. Now, it's a 4-mark question. Now, on the Cambridge iGCSE, if you've got a 4-mark question, you need to give 4 points, okay? And you get a point for each mark. So the hierarchy of settlements is essentially a way of displaying settlements in order of a number of different things, okay? So you could have picked up marks if you said that as you go up, the sphere of influence of that settlement increases. As you go up, the population increases. As you go up, the services or the levels of services shift and they change to more higher order services. And some of you mentioned things like comparison goods, which is good. And also that the size of the settlement changes as you move up the hierarchy. So obviously at the top of the hierarchy, you've got things such as cities, okay? Now, lots of you got a bit confused by that, or you only gave 1 or 2 points. You needed all 4 points in order to make sure that you could get all of those marks. Now, the next question, okay, asked you why people travel further for some goods or services than other goods or services. Now, lots of you missed out on marks because you forgot the feedback from previous lessons and you didn't use the key words. Remember, the 2 key words are comparison goods and convenience goods. Now, obviously, people are prepared to move further for comparison goods than they are for convenience goods. Now, that would have got you a mark. Now, you'll notice that I've written on this sheet of paper, don't say opposites for more marks. So, for example, lots of you put things like people are prepared to travel further for comparison goods because they're not things that they use every day, whereas people are prepared to travel less for convenience goods, such as milk, because they use them every day. Well, actually, that could only get you 1 mark because you said the opposite to what you've already said. So what you needed to do was to give some distinct points. Now, it was a 5-mark question, which meant that you got 1 mark for each thing that you said, okay? Or you could get a mark for developing your answer, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, okay? So some of the things that you could have said that perhaps maybe people use comparison goods less frequently, so therefore they don't have to travel as often for them. You could have said that they're higher in price, therefore people are more willing to shop around. You could have said that they have more specialist services that are not available in lower order settlements, so therefore people have to travel in order to find them. There are lots of things that you could have included in that answer. Okay, next question, okay, gave you some options for trying to relieve the problems of traffic within a particular settlement, okay? Now, some of you didn't even name the option. There was a box that said name the option. And if you didn't name the option, in theory, you wouldn't pick up the marks in an exam. Now, I was quite kind to a couple of you and I still gave you the marks, but you need to bear that in mind for the future. Now the question, when you read it carefully, says which option would you advise them to choose, and explain why you chose your option and why you rejected others. Now some of you just gave reasons why you chose your option and you didn't give advantages and disadvantages as to why you rejected the others. So you might have said that you would restrict or you would improve the amount of public transport through the city, because that would mean that people would be using public transport and not using cars. But what you then didn't go on to say was why that would have an advantage over, say, building a ring road around the city, which could be, I don't know, more expensive than investing in public transport. Now, it's a 5-mark question, so you could get 5 marks for giving 5 points, okay, or you could give 5 marks and you could give 1 point, and then you could develop that point in order to get you the extra mark. And I've put this means, okay, well, that's the sort of key connectives that you need to be using. You're therefore, and this means that, to explain in a bit more depth and detail. So I'll give you an example. You might have said that improving public transport throughout the city means that people are more likely to use public transport. Therefore, as a result, there'll be less cars in the city centre, so there'll be less congestion. And that's what gives you that extra mark for developing your answer. So you need to make sure that you're doing that. Okay, the next question was the big 7 marker, okay, and it asks you about a case study and how you could reduce traffic problems in that particular case study or settlement. Now, the case study that we did was Colchester. Now, if you made generic comments, you can pick up a mark for each generic comment up to a point of, say, 4 marks. So if you said something like they have built multi-storey car parks outside of the city centre, they've pedestrianised roads, they've introduced bike lanes, all of those things will just get you the 1 mark. What you need to do is to develop and explain the obvious to the examiner, okay? So if you say that they've introduced more bike lanes, that's fine, but you need to say they've introduced more bike lanes, which means that people are more likely to use bikes, therefore we get less traffic in the city centre. Now, in order to make sure that you could get full 7 marks, you needed to show the examiner that you knew the case study inside out and back to front. And that's where your level 3 information goes in. So you could have said something along the lines of, they've built multi-storey car parks outside of the city centre, such as St Mary's car park. The reason why they've done this is to encourage people to walk around the city and reduce the amount of traffic flowing through the CBD, okay? And that would allow you to access the top marks. Okay. The final question that I want us to go through is the one that said 3 reasons for traffic congestion in Hereford. Now, if you look at the figure carefully, there are a number of things that you could have included, and you get 1 mark for each reason. So there's no ring road around the city, okay? There's no public transport, in particular a station, okay? Obviously, if it had a station in the central business district, people might be more inclined to be able to use trains and public transport. There's lots of schools which could have generated traffic. There's a cathedral that might perhaps maybe cause traffic on a Sunday and other places. And also, there's only one sort of road river crossing which is going to cause tailbacks and traffic congestion at that particular place. Now, I told you not to write on your grade, and that's because I didn't think you would pay attention to this video and you just pay attention to the mark that you got. So the grade boundaries are as follows. You needed 21 marks for an A star, 19 for an A, 17 for a B, 15 for a C, 13 for a D, 12 for an E, 10 for an F, 8 for a G, and anything less than 8, I'm afraid, was a U. Okay, now obviously this is the first test that you've done, and we're going to do these feedback sessions so that you get better at them, so that your grades get enhanced. So don't kick yourself too much, but take on board the feedback that I've just given you. What you need to do now is you need to go away and you need to fill in your sheet with your what went well and your even better if, as to what you could do in order to be able to improve your particular answer that you are looking at. Okay, now you'll notice that the grade boundaries are pretty tight. Okay, so for example, there's only 1 mark between an E and a D. That means that every mark counts. There were a couple of people that frustratingly left answers completely blank. If you leave an answer completely blank, I can guarantee one thing: you'll get no marks. Okay, any questions? If anyone wants me to go through it with them on a one-to-one basis, all you've got to do is come and find me at a break time or a lunchtime, and I will go through the paper with you. Over and out.